A large crowd had gathered inside the dusty auction barn, with the air buzz of the tense excitement of wealthy breeders and elite dog trainers. All eyes were on a lineup of powerful, well-trained German shepherds, each a specimen of strength, obedience, and precision. The auctioneer called out numbers, and bids echoed to the wooden rafters. Men in polished boots, women in tailored coats, all ready to spend thousands on the finest canines available. But suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. The heavy barn doors creaked open, and in walked someone completely out of place. A little girl, no older than 9. She wore a faded pink dress with a tear near the hem, and her shoes were scuffed with dried mud. No adult accompanied her. She didn't speak or hesitate. Instead, she walked straight toward the auction platform, her small hand tightly gripping something that glinted faintly in the overhead lights. It was a worn, weathered dog tag. At first, people barely noticed her. But when she stepped past the front row and held up the tag with both hands, heads began to turn. Conversations paused. A few scoffed. "What's she doing here?" someone whispered. The auctioneer blinked in confusion. The girl didn't flinch. She stared at the row of dogs until her eyes found one in particular. And then, without saying a word, everything began to change. People in the crowd began to murmur as the little girl made her way forward. Some leaned toward one another, whispering with raised eyebrows, while others chuckled outright. The tension in the room gave way to ridicule. "Is this a joke?" A well-dressed man in a leather jacket scoffed, letting out a laugh as he nudged the person next to him. Did someone lose their kid? The auctioneer, caught off guard, glanced nervously between the girl and the crowd. This wasn't part of the event. No one from registration had listed a child as a bidder. For a moment, he hesitated, as if unsure whether to intervene or let the strange interruption play out. Unbothered by the stares or laughter, the girl stepped forward, her shoulders squared in quiet determination. The tag in her hand trembled slightly as she raised it toward the handler standing on the platform. "I'm here for Rex," she said softly, but with startling clarity. A hush fell over the front row. The handler, a tall man in a navy vest with clipboard tucked under his arm, looked down at her with a mixture of amusement and confusion. He narrowed his eyes, glancing briefly at the dogs behind him. "Rex," he repeated, then smirked. "And who might you be, little lady?" His voice dripped with sarcasm, but the girl didn't flinch. Her eyes never left his, and her fingers clutched the dog tag tighter. Among the neatly lined-up German shepherds, all obedient and still, one suddenly stirred. A massive black and tan male, with deep amber eyes, lifted his head sharply. His ears twitched. His nostrils flared as if catching a scent carried only to him. The noise of the auction faded for him, replaced by something far more powerful. Recognition. "Rex." He took a step forward, tail stiff, eyes locked on the girl standing near the platform. The handler turned, barking command. "Stay!" But it was too late. With a surge of energy, the dog broke formation. The chain clinked against the metal bars, then snapped free as the German shepherd leapt from the stage like a bullet. His paws hit the dirt floor with force, sending dust into the air. Gasps erupted from the audience. People stumbled back, startled, some raising their arms in panic as the huge dog barreled through the aisle. Chairs screeched against the ground. But Rex didn't stop. He dodged everyone, eyes focused only on one person, the little girl. She didn't move. She didn't scream. Instead, she dropped to her knees just as he reached her. He slammed into her chest with force that might have toppled a grown man, but she held him like she'd done 1,000 times before. Rex whimpered, licked her face furiously, tail whipping like a flag in the wind. The girl buried her face in his neck, whispering over and over, "I knew you'd remember me. I knew you'd come." The moment Rex reached her, he nearly knocked her over with his weight. But it wasn't aggression. It was pure, unfiltered joy. He licked her face wildly, his whimpers rising like cries of relief. His powerful tail wagged so fast it was a blur, thumping against the wooden floor as he pressed his head into her chest like a child seeking comfort. Gasps rippled through the barn. The wealthy bidders, trainers, and handlers who moments ago laughed at the girl were now wide-eyed, frozen in disbelief. A connection like this couldn't be faked. It wasn't obedience. It was reunion. The girl wrapped her arms around Rex's thick neck and whispered into his fur, "I knew you'd remember me." Her voice trembled, but it was steady with truth. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't wipe them. She just held him tighter, like she'd finally come home. The handler stood speechless, his clipboard nearly slipping from his hands. That's impossible," he muttered. "That dog was found abandoned. No records. No Chip. He was wandering near the highway, malnourished, filthy, no ID." He looked back at Rex, now lying protectively at the girl's feet, like a knight guarding queen. The scene shattered every rule he knew about training, ownership, and behavior. Whatever this was, it went beyond explanation. With one hand still resting gently on Rex's back, the girl slowly reached into the pocket of her worn dress and pulled out the rusted dog tag. Its surface was scratched, dulled by time and weather, but the engraving was still visible beneath the grime. She held it up to the handler with steady fingers, her voice soft but unshakable. "It belonged to my dad," she said. "He was a K-9 officer. Rex was his partner. They both went missing a year ago during a flood. They said Rex didn't make it, but I never believed them." The handler hesitated before taking the tag, his fingers brushing hers as he accepted it. He squinted at the worn metal, reading the words etched into it with growing disbelief. "Officer Daniels, Rex." The moment the name was spoken aloud, a heavy silence fell over the entire barn. The auctioneer stopped mid-sentence. The crowd stood frozen, caught between awe and guilt. Even the dogs behind the platform seemed to quiet, sensing the weight of what had just been revealed. The handler looked up at the girl, then back down at Rex, who was still glued to her side, tail slowly thumping now, as if satisfied that the world was finally listening. This can't be real," the handler murmured, though part of him already knew it was. Every instinct, every bit of training told him he was looking at a miracle. The girl sat on her knees beside Rex, her small hand resting gently on his thick fur as she looked up at the silent crowd. Her eyes glistened, not with fear, but with memories long buried under grief. Taking a breath, she began to speak, not to defend herself, but to tell the truth. "My dad was a K-9 officer," she said, voice steady despite the weight behind her words. "During the big flood last year, he was called to help evacuate a town near the river. Rex went with him, like always. They were a team, always together." She glanced at Rex, who looked up at her as if listening. They were last seen on the old bridge. Witnesses said it started collapsing from the current. "My dad, he got some people to safety, but when the bridge gave out, he went and tried to save one last person. They found his body the next day, but Rex was gone. No one ever found him." Her voice cracked slightly, but she kept going. "They said Rex probably drowned trying to follow him, but I never believed that. Not Rex." She ran her fingers through the fur on his neck. "He was more than just a dog. He was family. My dad's partner, my brother's best friend, and mine too. We grew up with him." Tears now welled in her eyes, but she didn't wipe them away. "I came here because I had a feeling, and now I know. He found his way back to me." The handler shifted uncomfortably, clearing his throat as he tried to regain control of the room. The emotions swirling in the barn were thick, but his training pushed him to maintain order. His voice, when he spoke, was firmer, almost mechanical. "I'm sorry," he said not unkindly, "but this dog is now the property of the auction. He was found with no ID, no chip. We took him in, trained him, rehabilitated him. He's worth thousands now." Several bidders in the crowd nodded in agreement, their expressions calculating. One man raised his hand and offered a new figure, double the last bid, just to prove Rex's loyalty had value. Another followed suit. The numbers started climbing, fast, but the girl didn't flinch. Quietly, she reached into her dress again and pulled out a folded piece of paper, yellow with age but carefully preserved. She held it with both hands and stepped forward. "This is for my dad," she said. "It was found in his locker after he died. I wasn't supposed to open it unless Rex was found." She handed the sealed envelope to the handler, the official police emblem still visible. He opened it hesitantly and unfolded the letter inside. His eyes scanned the words. It was short, handwritten and direct, just like a cop's would be. If Rex is ever found, bring him home. He belongs with my family. The barn fell into silence again. The bidders lowered their hands. And for the first time, the handler felt like he was no longer dealing with property, but with a promise. Tears welled up in the girl's eyes as she looked down at Rex. Her voice barely more than a whisper, yet powerful enough to carry across the silent barn. Rex home. That single word was all it took. The German shepherd turned from the stage, away from the bidders, away from the handler, and walked to her side with quiet dignity. He didn't need a leash. He didn't wait for a command. He simply sat beside her, tall and proud, as though this had always been his place in the world. His eyes stayed on her, alert yet calm, the way a soldier stands next his flag. The moment was so powerful, so pure, that no one dared interrupt. One by one, the crowd parted, clearing a path without a word. Even the bidders, who a moment ago were flashing money, now stood in reverent silence. The handler stared at the letter in his hands, then at the dog, and finally at the girl. Emotion caught in his throat. He lowered his head, voice hushed with humility. "He's not for sale," he whispered. "He was never ours to sell." Without another word, the girl turned, and Rex rose beside her. Together, they walked out of the barn, one small figure and one loyal protector, into the sunlight. Not a dry eye remained. Man's best friend had come home, and the daughter of the man he loved had brought him there,